Hi there. So in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at a free piece of software called Audacity. If you haven't seen it before, Audacity is available on the Audacity website, which is audacityteam.org. You can see the address at the top of the screen there. It's a fairly useful little audio editing package. It's free, like I said. It's available for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, so multi-platform, which is pretty nice, and it's quite a versatile little package. So it's definitely worth having on your machine if you don't already have it. Just as a quick sort of little go-to audio editing thing, it's handy. So this is what Audacity looks like. This is the main screen. So you've got a transport bar up the top left. We've got editing tools just next to that. All your zoom tools, your view stuff here, metering, and your ins and out levels and stuff. So you know, fairly straightforward little interface there. So the purpose of what we're going to be doing here, we're going to produce a piece of audio for an art project. The idea is to make a sort of industrial type background sound. Now the nature of that means that it's going to have a lot of low frequency content. So for most of this video, I would suggest you listen with headphones on. It's because if you're listening on laptop speakers, you just simply won't hear what we're doing at all. So it's imperative that you listen with headphones on, or through some decent speakers that can reproduce lots of low frequency stuff. So having said that, let's just assume you are wearing headphones now from this point forward, and we'll look at what we can do with Audacity. So we're going to create a 10-minute long industrial background wash of sound. It's not going to be a literal thing, so we're not going to include like machinery noises and stuff, but we're just going to place ourselves in that space. We're going to try and create the mood of being in some sort of environment, industrial environment. So let me get rid of me off the screen because we don't want that, and we'll make a start. So the first thing we'll do is create some basic background low frequency noise, just to give us a sort of that sort of throbbing machinery kind of feeling. So what can we do to do that? So let's see what we've got available to us. We can go up to the generate menu here, and we want to generate some basic tones first of all. So let's do, I've already got it set up here. So let's do, we'll create a sine wave. So it's just a simple tone. We'll create a very low frequency, so let's make this around about 40 hertz. I already had it typed in, but we'll type it again. And the amplitude, obviously the volume of this, on their scale, 0 is the quietest, so 0 is no sound, 1 is as loud as it gets. So we're going to go for about 0.3 on their scale. We're going to make it 10 minutes long, so you can see that in here. You type your time in here, and we'll just click OK there. And that is now generated us 10 minutes. You can see it on the time scale here. 10 minutes of this beautiful sound, which I will click now. And there you go. Wow. So that's our start for our project. Not entirely convincing as any sort of industrial sound. That's just a single 40 hertz tone. But what we could do is we can use a little phenomenon. We can use sort of beat frequencies to make this pulse in and out. So beat frequencies, if you haven't come across them before, is when two tones sort of interact and create a third frequency. So we'll create a second tone here. Now, just before I do that, when you're creating your second track, make sure you click off the first one, otherwise it'll just generate the second tone over the top of the same track. So we don't want that. So let's go up to so make sure we've clicked off it. We'll click on generate. We'll go down to tone, and we're going to create a second tone, just similar in frequency, but not the same as the first one. So let's just do, as an example, let's do 41 hertz. So the initial track was 40 hertz. This is 41, same length of time, same amplitude. Bang, there you go. So let's hear the original one was 40 hertz. Let's hear the second one, 41 hertz. Beautiful. Not sure which one I prefer. I think let's hear them both together. Wow, so what we're hearing there is the sound pulsing in and out. You see the volume, you see the amplitude of this changing up on the meters here. And every second, every 1 hertz, we're seeing this pulsing up and down. And 1 hertz is the difference in frequency between these two tracks. So they come in and out of phase once every second. So we did that deliberately. We created that one. So let's just get rid of that track. So we've still got our 40 hertz track here. Let's create another one, and let's not go for 41 hertz. Let's go for something a bit weirder. Let's go for 38.3 hertz. Same volume and same length of time. So let's hear what these two sound like together. So that's a bit faster. So the difference between these two, so 38.3 and 40, the difference is 1.7. So at 1.7 hertz, this is fading in and out. Again, not hugely usable as or convincing as a sound of machinery. So or as a bass kind of sound. So what we can do is we can add a third tone onto this, and we can have three things interacting. And so let's see what happens when we do that. So I just made the big mistake that I told you not to do. Let's deselect that layer first of all. Generate tone. And let's go for another number close in frequency, but not the same. So let's go for 37.1. Let's just make, again, I'm just making random numbers here and trying to keep them slightly different. So now we've got three different frequencies, different sine waves playing at the same time. And let's see what we've got as a result. Now that's much nicer. So I like the way they kind of interact, and it's not as predictable as the initial thing. And you could carry on. You could add in more tones if you wanted to do that. You could build up the layers there. But we'll go with 3 for the time being. I'm going to drop the volume of those a little bit because they're quite loud. So let's go down to about -12 for all 3 tracks, and there you go. So that's those 3 working away. So again, that's our initial little starting layer. It's not great by itself though. We need to add more content here. We need to add more interest to the sound. So let's add any industrial environment is going to have just a general background bit of noise on the go as well. So just not white noise, because white noise is very harsh, but let's see what we've got available to us. So again, we'll go up to the generate menu. We'll come down to noise. And let's see what we've got. Now we've got 3 different types of noise we can produce. We can produce white noise, which is very hissy, pink noise, which is a bit duller than that, and brown noise, which is the darkest of these 3 sounds. So we're going to create Brownian noise, amplitude 0.8. We don't want it flat out, so 0.8 for the moment. And again, we'll make it 10 minutes. And I'm just going to create that. And here's our hiss track. So I'm going to reduce the level of that because it's quite loud, and just let you hear what that sounds like by itself. Okay, so it's a kind of muffled hiss kind of sound that we've got there, but it's too bright still. I don't like the sound of that. It's too, even with our low frequency stuff in the background, it's too bright. So let's do something about that. Let's filter out some of the higher frequencies from this sound. Let's go up to the effects menu this time. So I've got this track selected. If I didn't, I would just click on it once there and it would select it. I'm going to go up to the effect menu. I'm going to come down to, I mean, there's quite a lot built in. We're going to come down to low pass filter because we want to just pass low frequencies, not high ones. And we're going to go for, let's filter out everything above 500 hertz. And this is how steep the roll off is above this frequency. So if it was just 6 dBs, then it would gradually fade out things above 500 hertz. We want to go pretty severe on this. So let's go to 48 decibels and we'll click OK. And now let's just hear what that's done to our hiss track. Much nicer. So that's a kind of a more subtle kind of sound than it was before. And let's just hear that with the low frequency stuff in the background. Yeah, I quite like that. So we'll keep that. So we've got our sort of low frequency thing. We've got a bit of background hiss going on, but equally at the same time, it's not hugely exciting, and it's kind of samey all the way through. It's 10 minutes of the same thing there. So let's add some variation into this sound. Let's bring in some other content. And to do that, we're going to use one of my favorite little built-in parts of Audacity. It needs a source sound for it to work. So I'm going to import a bit of audio. Let's just do this. So up to the file menu, down to import audio, and funnily enough, I've called this source sample. So I'm bringing in a little piece of music, funnily enough. And I'll explain why I'm bringing the music. Let's just listen to what we've got. So this is just our little audio file that I've brought in. Okay, so that might seem pretty random in this in the environment that we're trying to create. So what we can do is we can take this piece of audio, and what have we got there? Well, in that piece of audio, in that music, we've got rhythmical content. So we've got percussive elements going on, sort of drums and stuff. We've got high frequency stuff, we've got guitars, we've got low frequency stuff, there's a bass guitar in there. So there's lots of different, there's pitched elements, and there are percussive rhythmical elements in there as well. So that's kind of what we want. This is why I chose this piece of audio. So I'm going to use this track, and I'm going to go up to the effects menu, and I'm going to scroll down to a thing called Pole Stretch. Now, Pole Stretch is a basic time stretcher. It used to be a standalone piece of software. You can probably still download it. I'm not sure how available it is, but if you do a search for Pole Stretch, you'll see it. It certainly was a Windows piece of software. I don't know if they had a Mac version or whatever. But anyway, so it's the standalone software had a lot more control over it than this does. In this one, you can basically affect two parameters. You can change two parameters. You can change the stretch factor. Now that's a number telling it how much you want to time stretch by, and the time resolution, which affects the size of the slices that the stretching algorithm uses. So for example, let's take that piece of audio, and we're going to let's stretch it out by a factor of 5. So let's just hear what that sounds like. So you heard that it's kind of smearing things out. It sounds very odd how it's stretched stuff out there, but it's quite a nice effect. And if we go crazy with the stretch factor here, so I'm going to type in, we're going to go for 40 odd as our stretch factor. And again, a time resolution of 0.1, and I'm just going to hit go on this and let it burble away in the background, because it's going to take a little while to do its thing. But hopefully what we'll end up with is a big, really stretched out piece of audio based on the original content, but it's going to sound, well, let's just hear it. It's going to sound quite different from the source file. So pretty weird sounding stuff there, and quite. I really like that effect. I like what it does to sound, and you can go even more intense with the stretching if you want. It'll chuck out some pretty lengthy files from small input files. So that's nice, but it's got too much high frequency content, and it's changing too rapidly for my liking. Remember, we're talking about this. We want this to be a fairly subtle background wash of sound. So let's see what we can do about that. So at the moment, it's about 6 minutes long, so it's too short as well for our track. So it's changing too quickly. There's too much high frequency content. So let's slow it down. So let's go up to the effects menu, which is here. And let's go for change speed, which sounds like it might do our thing. So we've got this slider here, which is telling you, if you look at the percentage just above that, that's the percentage that the speed will change by. So we don't want to go positive, we want to go negative with the speed change, and we're going to go pretty heavy duty on it. So we're going to go negative, I don't know, negative minus 72. So that's the percentage of speed change. That's saying that the current length of that track is 6 minutes and a bit, 6.5 minutes. The new length will be 23 minutes long, so kind of longer than we were looking for, but never mind, we'll go with it, and let's see what this does for us. So let's just click OK. And again, a few seconds processing time, because we're talking sort of larger files now. But let's hear what we've got with this new time stretched piece of audio. So this is just it by itself, just soloed. Now I like that. So that's a lot more subtle than it was before. There's still, and it's changing, it's evolving over time, which is nice because the other sounds that we had up here, you know, we had this pulsing sound, which obviously changes over time, but it's rhythmical, and it's there's not enough interest in there. The noise, sorry, was also just a constant throughout the track. So this is nice and an evolving kind of sound. There is some high frequency content in it, so it's not strictly within what we were looking to do. However, it's subtle enough that we're going to just go with it. So I'm going to delete all the extras off the end there. I mean, we could low pass filter that if we wanted to, but we're not going to leave it at that volume. Let's hear what that sounds like with the other tracks. Oops, let's go back to the start and hit play. So it's quite loud there in comparison to the other tracks. So quite like that. And let's go to a louder section. So let's choose something like here. Let's go for this bit. And just make sure it's not hugely it's not jumping out too much. That's quite a nice balance. So you see, even though there is some higher frequency content in that sound, it's not jumping out. It's not sticking out too much. So we'll go with that. So yeah. So we've got some nice variation in sound over time here as well. We've got our originals, we've got the low frequency stuff, we've got the noise, and we've got that. However, it's not quite moody enough. I'd like to bring in another element on top of that. So what we could do is let's make this a little bit more ominous, a little bit more kind of threatening even. So how can we do that? Let's take this track, and I'm going to duplicate this track. Sorry, we go up to the edit menu, and we will click on duplicate. And yeah, we've got two of these now. So I'm going to solo this one, and I'm going to just absolutely destroy this track. We're going to go pretty heavy duty on it with processing. So I'm going to go up to the effects menu, and I want to distort this, and I'm going to use this distortion plugin of the effects menu. And it's got different types of clipping. There's all sorts of fancy stuff in here. I'm just going to go with pretty brutal hard clipping. A hard clipping just means that when the waveform exceeds a certain level, it's just going to slice the tops off it. It's pretty ugly stuff. So it's again, with a lot of these things, it's easier to hear it than to hear me talking about it. So let's just start the playback, and I'm going to listen to what happens as I bring this clipping level down. So let's start playback. Bring the level up a bit, and let's start distorting. Let's start clipping. Yuck. But it's got some sort of, I quite like that actually. That's really heavily clipped, totally destroyed. So I'm just going to apply that to that track. Oh, I applied that to both the tracks. That's not quite what I wanted. Let's undo that. Control Z. And let's just make sure we do it to only this track. So effects menu, distortion, leave it at the settings it was on. There you go, a bit quicker. Okay, so you'll see now that track is just, if we were to zoom in on this track now and see what it looks like, it's just square waves. It's absolutely obliterated that track, so that, which is kind of what we want. It's going to sound pretty ugly by itself, but we're going to use that as a constituent part of this overall thing. So let's well, I'm going to make it really quiet first of all. I'm going to add it in gradually to the rest of the tracks, and we'll see what it sounds like. Let's see what we've got. You can already hear it's really loud. Right, that is too harsh. Let's just hear it by itself. it's far too bright sounding. There's too much high frequency in there. So let's go back to our low pass filter effect and grab that. Oops. Let's select the audio first, obviously, up to the low pass filter, and let's go for let's cut out everything above 1000 hertz, 1 kilohertz. Okay, so process that, and let's see what that sounds like now. Just this track by itself. Now I like that a lot. So that's got much more character to it than just that horrible harsh clipping. It's an odd kind of thing. So let's hear what that sounds like in with the other sounds. So here we go. Right, pretty good. I like that. But however, it's constant. We don't want that all the time because it's just odd. So let's add some movement into this distorted track as well. Let's make it kind of fade in and out. Now there's different ways of doing that. You could draw in a volume envelope on top of it. Or you could do all sorts of stuff. We're going to just be lazy and we're going to use an effect called tremolo, which is it's like turning the volume up and down on the track rhythmically. So we're going to go with the tremolo. You just dial in your frequency. So if I typed in 1 there, it would turn the volume up and down every second. If I type in 0.33, it's going to do it every 3 seconds because it's a third of a second. Is the period. So it's going to be, let's go for 0.033 and see what we get with that. So now you'll see, let's just zoom in a bit so we can see the actual times of this. Back to the start. So you can see one fade in and fade out takes 30 seconds. All right. That's quite slow. Let's do that. Okay, no, we'll go with that. And then let's do that again. So that's going to fade this distortion in and out every 30 seconds. Fair enough. And then let's do something else. Again, that's too rhythmical. So that's just a constant fading in and out. So let's just do this. Let's do the tremolo again. And we will go. We'll add in, I've just added in another 0 there, so let's do that. And this will add in another tremolo, but much slower. It's going to take 10 of these to cycle. So let's see what that looks like. So now we have tremoloed our tremolo, if you know what I mean. So we've got this distortion that fades in and out, and gets louder and louder and louder, and then gets quieter, and then gets louder and louder. So let's see what this sounds like, and see if it's noticeable even at the start here. Okay, so it's in there. It's not super duper loud. Let's go to the louder section to see what it sounds like here. Yeah, okay, I like that. So that's good. So that's fading in and out, and it's not too brutal at these points in time. However, it's adding some interest to our overall sound. So that's pretty much, I think, as far as we're going to take this. We've got a low frequency sort of background throbbing sound. We might bring those up a little bit. Let's make these about -9. And yep, let's go with that, and we'll see what we've got. So we're going to go from the beginning of this thing and see what it sounds like. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just mute a couple of these things just to see if they're still actually doing anything for the overall sound. So let's mute this Brownian noise track. Yeah, so we definitely do need that in there. It does add something. Okay, so there you have it. So not a bad attempt. It's not, again, we haven't literally created the sound of machines and machinery and stuff, but we've artificially created a layer of sound that could put you in that, if you were, you know, trying to imagine that sort of environment. This is not a bad approximation of some sort of spooky, slightly threatening kind of industrial type environment. So I'm going to leave it there. Hope that's been of use to you, and we'll quit it at that. If you want to ask any questions about any of that, obviously you can just go back over the video, but you can send me a message on my email, and I will certainly answer any questions that you've got. So there you go, 10 minutes long. I think we've covered the brief. We've got a nice industrial type sound. We've used free tools, we didn't use any extra plugins, nothing outside of what is built into Audacity, and we've built, in effect, quite a complex sound just using those tools. So hope you got something from that, and thanks for watching.